Wolfpack Nation, welcome back for part 2 here as we are lucky enough to once again have Maddie Mcpherson, former NC State softball pitcher with us. Again, if you haven't checked out part 1, that is a must do. You check out and learn more about her experience with the Florida Vibe, which is a professional softball team within more of a brand new actually professional softball league. So make sure to check that part out first and then tune in right back in here as we're going to be talking more about her time at NC State, the road that she took to NC State, and just kind of taking a look back and even talking about this upcoming team here as well. So my first question, which I got to ask, I wanted to ask this kind of in a recorded space because I'm sure that maybe I'm probably not the only one that has this question. But so you may not know this too, but you're actually the third former softball player that we've interviewed. We've interviewed Kaylin Dent and we've interviewed Angie Rizzi. And and I know we've asked it before, but I always get confused about it. So I'm going to ask this. But so is it Coach Patrick Swift for both of them? Or is it Coach Patrick and then Coach Swift?
It's Coach Patrick and Coach Swift. And funny enough with that, when they were first recruiting me and I was looking at their names, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to tell them apart? Like if they have the same name, like what's going on? So they each go by Coach Patrick and then Coach Swift. So there's no confusion there.
Okay. And just to clarify too, so the head coach is Coach Patrick, and then the assistant coach is Coach Swift. Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. No. Cool. Yeah. Because again, I'm sure I'm not the only one that you're probably looking, going, well, so what are you going to call them both, Coach Patrick Swift? Like, that doesn't make sense. So cool. Good to know. So now that we've got that ironed out, so first of all, I do want to ask, obviously, coming out of high school, you spent 2 years at Georgia. So I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit in terms of, you obviously went from Georgia Tech to NC State. So would you say that the reasons for you going from Georgia Tech were different than Georgia Tech to NC State? Was it more opportunity based, or was it, something more underlying there, that you wouldn't mind kind of explaining a little bit?
So for me, they were all just opportunity based. Like little backstory. So I went to Georgia first, obviously. I was a mid-year, so I actually graduated in December and came up in January, which really isn't common for softball. Like that happens a lot in football, but with softball, you're going straight into that first season since it's in the spring. So I actually redshirted that first year. I personally felt like that would be the best plan. Some people go straight in and play their first season, but for me, I felt like it was going to be better for me to redshirt, to still, get that practice in with I was pitching against SEC hitters every day at practice. So I felt like, if I can have that opportunity of being up there a semester earlier than my class, like, why not go ahead and do that? And luckily, like, I didn't need to use another redshirt year or medical redshirt, anything like that. So I redshirted that first season and then spent 2 more seasons at Georgia. And then I loved it. I had a great experience there. I just wanted to play more. Got to play a little bit, just not as much as I wanted. So went in the portal, and crazy enough, so before I decided Georgia Tech, it actually came down between NC State and Georgia Tech. Like I was so dead set on going to NC State. And I think I literally cried to the coaches telling them, I was like, I can't come there. I was like crying, and I'm not an emotional person at all. Like I don't show emotion. I don't cry. Like I know I smile a lot here, but like I'm pretty just, even kill. And I was like, It's so upset telling them. And the reason I went to Georgia Tech, which had a great experience there too, got to play more than I ever wanted, got a great degree. So with Georgia, they have in-state, they have Hope or Zell Miller, which is based off of your SAT or ACT scores and your GPA in high school. So that either pays half or all of your tuition. So not even including like softball or like athletic money at all. So I was like, I'll really want to go to NC State. But like for me, and I'm from Georgia anyway, so Georgia Tech is 2 hours away from my house. I was like, okay, well, Raleigh, that's 8.5, 9 hours. Not that that's too far, but my parents are both teachers and coaches. They just can't take Thursday, Friday off to come, watch a weekend series. So I'm like, and my family lives in Atlanta as well. So I was like, well, I think it makes better sense that, I stay close to home. Everybody can watch me play. Loved Georgia Tech, and also had that hope and zeal that paid not even on top of what softball was giving. So I was like, just financially and family wise, it made more sense. Even though I absolutely loved everything about NC State. So, the second time with COVID, so I actually spent 2 seasons at Georgia Tech, and my first season was the COVID year. So, all that crazy stuff, it was canceled. So then spent one more season at Georgia Tech, and then graduated from there. And I was like, I feel like I sort of just experienced everything Georgia Tech had to offer. Like, why not try to go somewhere else? Didn't have to, but felt like I wanted to, and that was something I wanted to do. And it was pretty cool to me that the coaches, Coach Swift and Coach Patrick, reached back out, because I'm like, they very easily could have been like, you told us no the first time. Like, why would we want to reach back out? So literally I read their email. Like, I still had their phone numbers in my phone. I called them, didn't even like talk to anybody else. I was like, I'm coming there. Like,
Wow.
I don't need I don't need you to tell me anything. I don't need any like information. This is where I'm going.
Yeah. It sounds like it was like a head decision to a degree of choosing Georgia Tech the first go around. Maybe I'm wrong. And then somebody said like your heart seems to have been like, no, I want to go to State, and I was trying to use my brains here. I get my tuition paid off here and there, and get a good degree. But then you don't even think about it. You go to State.
Yes, exactly. So it's crazy that it's a sort of full circle moment of, how it all happened. And we would laugh about it every day at practice. They would come in, they'd be like, you remember when you told us no? And, we would just have like a running joke about it the whole time. And it just made things so much fun at practice, and just love them, and just so grateful for everything that they've done.
That's awesome. I'm also kind of curious too. It's not state related, but you said you have family in Atlanta area, and you're from Georgia. You committed to Georgia and went to Georgia Tech. Did you ever get a lot of jabs about that?
Oh my gosh, I did. The amount of people both ways. So it's crazy because Georgia, like, yes, they are rivals, but Georgia really doesn't recognize Georgia Tech as the rival, which sounds a little crazy. Georgia Tech makes it all about the rivalry, right? Georgia's like, oh, it's Georgia Tech, but Georgia's like, oh my God, or Georgia Tech's like, oh my gosh, it's Georgia, so they make it the rival. So when I told people that I was going to Georgia Tech, they were like, well, why are you going there? Like, what's going on with you? And I'm like, what do you mean?
It's a great degree. Yeah.
It's a great school. It's like, they're really good. So definitely got, of course everybody was saying it in like a joking manner. No one was mad, but definitely got a lot of jabs of like, and crazy looks of like, you're going to Georgia Tech? Are you sure? Like, that's the right school.
I can imagine if somebody was like, yeah, I'm going from State to UNC, or I'm going to go from UNC to State or to Duke, or it'd be like, okay.
Right, you would do like a double take. Like, are you sure?
It's a little different because they're in different conferences, but it's similar kind of. I get that.
Right. That's crazy enough. So since it is a rivalry game, we always play them in a midweek 2 times a year. So I knew that I was still going to play them, and those games were a lot of fun.
Good. And and one question too, which you kind of said. So and again, this is maybe me, kind of maybe learning definitely a little bit here, but so are softball not full scholarships already? Because you kind of said that Hope, it kind of covers. So is it not a full scholarship?
It really depends. They can be full scholarships. In my case, I was lucky enough to have one. With pitchers, you sort of get like, I guess you should say lucky, because you're more like likely to get a full scholarship being a pitcher. Not saying that other players can't. Like, of course you can. But for me, it just made more sense to stay in state and get that, because that meant I was getting money back in my pocket. So that was just one of the financial reasons that I decided to. I was like, might as well take opportunity of it, of like, I'm already getting that from just the state of Georgia. Like, might as well add that on to my softball money.
I gotcha. Okay. I didn't know that. I was sitting here like, you need a scholarship? Like, that's interesting. Didn't know that.
I can't remember the exact, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I can't remember the exact, they have like, similar to all other sports of like, they have a certain amount of scholarships they can choose to, divide up use however they want. I just don't know the exact
Sure.
number.
Yeah, no, I get that. So okay, again, learn something new today. So good to know. Into obviously talking about when you first came to state. So what was your overall first impression? Like like when you came to state, like what was that first week like? Where'd you go to eat? What'd you do? Like what was kind of the the first reaction of getting used to Raleigh and the NC State campus a little bit?
Yeah. So, of course, I saw it, which I didn't take an official visit the second time that I looked at NC State. I was like,
Right.
I've been there. Like, I know what
Yeah.
it is. I don't need
Yeah.
it. So, I mean, I had an official visit, before I went to Georgia Tech. So I guess that was going on 3 years ago. So I had an idea of what it was like, and like rented my apartment online, like didn't go up to Raleigh to like scope out anything. So I was like, you know what, this is just going to be a brand new experience. When I get there, I'm going to see what it looks like, where I'm living, what the whole deal is. So, where did I go to eat? So my favorite, all of my teammates were like, you have to go to Amedio's. And I was like,
Sure.
what's Amedio's? They're like, it's Italian, it's pizza, it's pasta, you're gonna love it. And I was like, well, what's so special about it? Like, I just don't know. They're like, well, they of course looked at me crazy. I didn't know. And they're like,
Just
what,
wait.
you just gotta go. You gotta try it. So that turned into one of my favorite spots very quickly because I lived right down the road from it. So, just on the way from practice, I'd be like, that looks good. Gonna stop. Which I probably shouldn't have.
Sure.
Let's see. The Starbucks on, is it Glenwood? Right by the McDonald's downtown. That
Yeah.
quickly
Okay.
became a spot for me because I had to pick up my coffee. Big coffee girl here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also love Sushi Blues downtown. That was really, really great. Great
Yes.
sushi. Um, as far as on campus, I feel like I had a little bit of a different experience because my master's degree was all online. So we didn't have to take any classes. Like, of course, I was on campus for softball, but I actually only had one class in 2 semesters on campus. So I really only went to one building on campus, like school wise. So I
Gotcha.
don't think I got the full experience. Like, of course, I could have gone and walked through bunch of different buildings, but I feel like I didn't have the traditional experience, but it was everything that I could have asked for. So, like, always around Case and then Reynolds, where our locker room is, and of course the softball field. I think the
Mhm.
thing that was coolest for me with softball, our field in general, was how it's set into the ground. I think that's so cool with having the bleachers like all the way, like you're looking up into them with the Tuffy eyes behind it. That's so cool.
Yeah. No. Well, and again, too, I kind of, kind of leads to a part two question. So if if Coach Patrick or Boo Corrigan came to you and said, all right, Maddie, we have this, we have a set amount of money, and we want to make an upgrade to the softball stadium, what would your first thing be in terms of upgrades?
My first thing would be, I don't think the field itself needs any upgrades. Like, I think I love it. It's good to go.
Sweet.
The first thing that I would do would be making our indoor hitting facility bigger. Like, I know we
Okay.
don't have a lot of space to go like grow horizontally, but we could go like vertically. I think it'd be cool to make like a 2-story type like hitting facility, and then like I'm getting in probably too many details here, but if you could have like an awning that goes over the top, then our bullpen is right there by the hitting facility. So always have to look out the pitchers over here too. So then you could have like an awning where you could pitch whether it's raining, it's sunny, cloudy, just have that like protection.
It's
Yeah.
very clear you thought this through. It is very
Oh,
clear you thought this through.
I would stand there at practice, because pitchers, like we would do our bullpen, but when we were shagging, we really weren't doing much at that point. So I would sit over there and look, and I'm like, what would I change? And that was funny enough you asked that. So my master's, so I had a grad certificate in sport and entertainment venue management, and that was a bunch of like what we talked about, like upgrading facilities and doing all of that stuff. So definitely thought about that a lot.
That's
Good.
awesome.
Fair enough. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. So, kind of talking to, a little bit about last season, a little bit. So obviously, 33-23 record, obviously 7-17 in conference. But, I think that one of the biggest things a couple things that really stood out is, first of all, obviously the team started off red hot. I mean, I think, won good 18 of the first 20 games, something like that, something ridiculous. Like it was just off to the races from the get go. But also too, even as well, I still remember to this day, when we played the Florida State series at home.
Mhm.
And me, I was still balancing, like, kind of working out plans to make it down for a game. So I hadn't bought a ticket yet. But then all of a sudden, I started seeing on Twitter popping up saying sold out. It's sold out. And I was like,
Mhm.
what? What do you mean it's sold out? Like, like I've never heard of that. And
Mhm.
so I started kind of panicking. But I mean, it's cool. I mean, luckily enough, I was able to get a ticket and figure out how to get in there for sure. But it's. I mean, again, I can't even remember the last time, if ever, that NC State game, much less a whole series, sold out, like that. And so, to me, and that combined with also too the fact that last year's class, not the class coming in right now, but the class before was a top 10, recruiting class in the country. So, all those three things combined, it seems like for sure that, I mean, Coach Patrick and Coach Swift are definitely pushing this program in the right direction. So, especially since you've been, lucky enough to have been with a couple other programs, where do you kind of see NC State in terms of, where they are and, how close they are to really taking that next step of really being, I think for me, the next step is being competitive in the ACC and,
Right.
seeing, if we can work to the top.
Yeah, like you said, I think that they have taken the program from where it was at and already made great strides of making it better and getting the talent in. And like you said, the last class that came in, not this year, but the past year, like you said, they were a top 10 recruiting class, like great players, brought a lot of high quality transfers in and still had those high quality players that were there left from the other coaches or coming in. So they really modeled their team of who they wanted. And I think that's really great for them because they're starting to get the players that they've chosen and that they've picked to be there and that want to follow the culture and the team and just, embrace that and that home run mindset. I know I'm not a hitter, but, we do take that home run mindset to pitching too, as crazy as that sounds. I think we were right there in a lot of games this past season. Like you said, we got started really, really hot. And we were on and off a little bit throughout, the rest of the season, the middle of the season. But it wasn't like we were ever, really out of games. It was
Right.
like you were right there. And I think it's just making that one adjustment. And that was the thing that we talked about. It seemed to be like, the games that we didn't win or didn't pull out, that it was like, defense or hitting or pitching would be really great. And it'd be like we couldn't get one of the aspects rolling. And not that we did bad, but it was like, when are we going to get all three like firing on the same cylinder?
Right.
And that was something that we talked about. And I think that moving forward, like being competitive in the ACC, like we are competitive. It's just getting everything going all at the same time and just really figuring that out and figuring how the team works together. Because there, like this past season, there are so many people that could play so many different positions that, I mean, that's a great luxury to have. But it was also like, you also have to figure out where people can go and what they're comfortable with and how the team works like that. So I think that was one of our biggest like strengths, but then also like it was just different because we had people, moving so many different spots. So I think, I think moving forward as far as like this upcoming season or whatever it may be, like we're right there. It's just making those few little tiny adjustments.
Yeah. And I'm curious, now that now you're playing professionally and you're past your 1 year NC State, even though it was 1 year, how do you feel NC State sets you up for the success you have now as a professional?
Right. I mean, I don't think I would even be in this position without NC State. Of course, I feel like I was a good player at Georgia and a good player at Georgia Tech. And but being at NC State, like I completely changed. Like I threw, not that it's all about speed, but like I hit 72 this year, which softball, like that's pretty hard. Like that's gaining 4 miles an hour. Like I sat around like 67, 68 at Georgia Tech, like just gaining 4 miles an hour in itself, like even
In
over
1 year.
in 1 year, it's like
Right.
crazy. Like most people don't even gain that in like an entire career. And like I said, not that it's all about speed, but like, Coach DeVries setting us up for success of like, I didn't change. I didn't do anything different, but what programs that she had us on and like tiny, like little adjustments, like allowed me to do that. And, I think as far as like the drills that we did and their pitch calling and really just teaching us like the whys behind like what we're doing really helped us. And I think, also on the flip side, like teaching us like the mental side of the game too. Like we had Brian Kane come in and talk to us. And like I said, I've always been like a really even kill, like don't really show much emotion, but I would also want to be like a perfectionist and somebody would get a hit and I would get so angry. And I'm like, why am I giving up a hit? What am I doing? And really having him come in to talk to us, like sort of changed how I like pitched mentally. And that completely changed how I pitched, where I was like, I can only control the pitch that I'm throwing at that moment. Whatever happens after, it's just a neutral. It can't be positive or negative. It's neutral. And then you just move on from there. And that really helped me because in pro ball, I mean, you're going to give up hits. You're going to give up hits at any level that you're at. But I think having that strong background physically and mentally helped me prepare for this past season.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, kind of, asking kind of two questions here to kind of wrap this up. So first one is, so I know, one clip, and I know we brought this up with pretty much both of the Angie Rizzi and Caitlin Dent, but it's still a clip which in my head I think sits there mostly because it just is the clip that really sold me on Coach Patrick, and that was actually a game which I'm very much believe you are a part of, which was Georgia Tech playing at State, and when Coach Patrick got ejected. And so to me, so kind of a little bit of the backstory, and again, we'll have the link to that clip in the description below to definitely check it out if you haven't already. But basically, kind of summary, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but basically, bases were loaded. State was up by 3. It was bottom of the 6th, 7th, whatever it was, very late in the game, and the pitcher, State's pitcher had pitched pretty much the whole game, like probably like 120, if not more pitches. So long time, and basically it was a pitch that was right inside that probably should have been a strike and should have been the end of the inning, but it wasn't. They called it a ball to go to full count, and then next pitch, just ding a right over right field, and Georgia Tech takes the lead to win it all. And still the funniest thing to me was when they showed the replay and you could see Coach Patrick, before the ball's even left the field, she's already started walking over to home plate to get in the umpire's face and just let him have it. That is the worst piece of fishing I've ever seen, and just letting him have it. And just to me, it just really stood out to me just because it just sold me that, first of all, seeing that fire, but also, just seeing her stick up for the play, because that really was less about necessarily the call and more of just, the fact that, this is a pitcher that's been grinding the entire game and earned to win, to save the game for NC State. But because of that one pitch, now she lost it. And so that I knew that was where her mindset was. So, kind of talk to me a little bit about, first of all, kind of thoughts on that play, but also just, the impact of Coach Patrick. Again, she's still, very young, for where she is as a head coach, and hopefully has a long journey ahead for NC State. So if you kind of, give us, fans who don't work with her a lot, kind of a little bit more insight in terms of, what we have here as a head coach for NC State softball.
Right. It's crazy that you mentioned that, because when you were telling that entire story, I just had chills, even though I was on the complete opposite side at that point. And it's crazy to think about now. Of course, when that was going on, and, I was on the Georgia Tech side, so I was happy that they hit the Grand Slam and that we won. But also watching that happen, I think, like you said, from an outside perspective, you're able to see how much she actually cared about her players. And like you said, the pitcher and just the entire team in general and how she had their backs. And that's not something, I recognized it in that moment, but I think I recognized it from an outside standpoint of like, oh, like I'm on the other team, like this happened. That was really cool that she did that. Like I appreciate she did that for her team, but I really didn't think anything, too much more about it. Now that I have that other experience of being here at NC State and in being that player for her, I can tell you, like you said, the fire that she has not only inside of her to succeed, but like she puts that in everybody else. Like I just cannot say enough great things about her. She truly wants you to succeed and to do and be the best that you can. But even more importantly, they treat you like family. They have three little daughters that are just adorable, and you feel like you're a part of their family. Like you're their daughter, and that's what she always preaches. Like, of course, we're here to play softball, and we want you to be the best, but like we also want to make you the best outside of softball and past softball. And I think that's something that's really important because, like, yeah, you do want to be the best at softball and you want a coach that's going to fire you up and give you all the tools that you need to succeed. But also, I mean, there is more to life than softball. And, not many people get to play after that. So it's like what they're doing to set you up to be the best that you can be after softball and in life. That just makes you feel really special. And she just really empowers people, both softball and in life.
Oh, wow. That's amazing statement right there for sure. We'll definitely have to share that clip on social media and tag Coach Baxter because that was awesome. That was a great summary there. So the last question, which I wanted to kind of ask more for the fun side, is, obviously, there's a lot of players, that have played for multiple schools, and, obviously one, famous one for NC State is Russ Wilson, obviously, playing 4 years at State and then going to Wisconsin for his last year. And, he says this famous phrase, I'm a whole pack of Badgers, but yet he's spoken twice at NC State during graduation. And then also too, he's, said, in a speech saying, yeah, I'm one of the NC State quarterbacks that plays in the NFL. So, for you, obviously, you kind of had your heart with a couple of different teams going from Georgia Tech to NC State. Do you kind of have like more of an allegiance for one versus the other? Or is it more just kind of a, an appreciation for what each of them gave you per se?
Right. I think I do have an appreciation for each, but my heart is definitely with NC State. I had the best time there. I loved everything about it. I think things work out the way that they're supposed to. So I hate to be like, if I had it over, like if I could do it over, I wish I would have chosen NC State the first time. Like I wish I could have. But, I think God has a plan for everything and, it just happens. And I don't think I would have, had these opportunities if, things like that haven't occurred. But NC State has my heart.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear, Maddie. Well, again, first of all, Wolfpack Nation, if you haven't already, again, after the first part, make sure to, if you haven't already followed Maddie on her social media, make sure to do that first. All the links to her social media are in the description below. So make sure to check her out, give her a follow, and keep up with this Pack Pro for sure. But first of all, Maddie, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And definitely, again, we'll be cheering for you 100%. In all your future endeavors, and definitely hope you can come back to State this season for some games, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Maddie. It's our pleasure. Absolutely. Well, it was our pleasure. Absolutely. This was great. I wish we could do a part 3, but I guess eventually we got to wrap this thing up. So with that being said, Wolfpack Nation, again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't really miss out whenever we release any new NC State content. And also to give this video a like if you're a huge NC State fan just like us. Hit that like button for us if you don't mind. That would really help us out a lot. And also to give us a follow at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter, Instagram, and also to make sure to check out our channel memberships. Again, for $1.99, there's a ton of exclusive Tuffy Talk content, videos, private Discord, newsletter, you name it. A ton of value there for only $1.99 a month. So with that being said, thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you all soon. As always, go Pack, Wolfpack Nation.